Hey there, friend. Imagine this. A golden South African sunset painting the savanna in hues of fire and amber, where the wild hums with life and secrets. In Marielle National Park, a pride of lions moves like shadows through the grass, their strength and grace a reminder of nature's raw beauty. But what happens when danger strikes one of their own, and a single human steps into the heart of the wilderness to help? This isn't just a story about a lion caught in a trap. It's about loyalty that runs deeper than blood, courage that defies fear, and a bond that feels like a whisper from the universe. Stick with me, because what unfolds in this tale will tug at your heart and maybe even make you see the world a little differently. Ready to step into the wild? Let's go. The air in Marielle National Park carried the warm, dusty scent of baked earth, mingling with the faint sweetness of acacia blooms. Dusk was settling, wrapping the savanna in a soft purple glow, and the pride of 6 lions, 5 females and 1 towering male, padded silently across the grasslands. Their paws pressed into the soil with purpose, each step a quiet promise of unity. The male, with a mane like burnt gold, led the way, his amber eyes scanning the horizon. Somewhere in the distance, a francolin's sharp call pierced the calm, as if warning the world to hold its breath. It was the kind of evening where you could feel the pulse of the wild, steady and alive. But something was about to shatter that peace. The pride moved toward a cluster of low shrubs, their tails flicking like metronomes. The females, sleek and watchful, fanned out slightly, their ears twitching at the rustle of unseen critters. The male lion paused, sniffing the air, his broad chest rising and falling. Then, in a heartbeat, the serenity broke. A sickening clang of metal echoed, followed by a roar that tore through the twilight like thunder. The male stumbled, his massive frame collapsing as a poacher's trap, meant for rhinos, clamped onto his leg. Pain radiated from his snarls, raw and desperate. The savanna seemed to freeze, holding its breath. What would the pride do now? The females spun toward their leader, eyes wide with alarm. The trap's steel teeth gleamed cruelly in the fading light, a man-made scar on the wilderness. The male's roars softened into guttural groans, his strength waning as he clawed at the ground. The youngest lioness, her coat still dappled with faint spots, let out a low, mournful whimper, nudging his flank. It was as if the pride could sense the danger wasn't just in the trap, but in what might come next. Poachers, drawn by the sound lurking like ghosts in the dusk. The air grew heavy with tension, every snap of a twig amplifying the threat. Could they protect him in time? The savanna's colors deepened, the sky now a canvas of indigo and crimson. The pride didn't scatter, though instinct might have urged them to flee. Instead, they closed ranks, their bodies forming a loose circle around the wounded male. His pain seemed to ripple through them, binding them tighter. A distant hyena cackled, mocking the moment. But the lionesses stood firm, their gazes darting between their leader and the darkening horizon. It was a scene that felt bigger than itself, like the universe was watching, waiting to see what courage would rise. But who or what could help them now? The night crept closer, stars pricking the sky one by one. The male lion's breathing grew ragged, each exhale a testament to his fight for survival. The females paced restlessly, their claws digging into the earth, leaving faint trails in the dust. Somewhere out there, the poachers' shadows loomed, their greed a poison in this sacred place. The pride's unity was their strength, but it might not be enough against steel and malice. A soft breeze carried the scent of danger, and the question hung in the air like a storm cloud. Would help arrive before it was too late? The savanna held its breath as the male lion lay trapped, his massive frame trembling under the trap's cruel bite. The air now carried a sharp tang of blood, mingling with the dry grass's brittle scent, a reminder of the wilderness's unforgiving zh. The 5 lionesses didn't scatter into the shadows as fear might have urged. Instead, they pressed closer, their golden eyes glinting with something fiercer than instinct, loyalty, raw and unshakable. The youngest, her whiskers quivering, nudged the male's muzzle, her soft chuff a plea for him to hold on. It was the kind of moment that makes you wonder, don't animals sometimes teach us what devotion really means? One lioness, older and scarred from past hunts, took the lead, her low growl vibrating through the dusk. She circled the trap, sniffing cautiously, her tail slicing the air like a whip. The others followed, their movements synchronized, as if they'd rehearsed this dance of protection 1,000 times. The male's pain seemed to anchor them, each of his shallow breaths pulling them tighter together. A distant jackal's yip cut through the silence, but the lionesses didn't flinch. Their focus was absolute, their empathy a shield against the creeping dark. How long could they stand guard like this? The night deepened, wrapping the pride in a cloak of starlight. The trap's metal gleamed coldly, a stark contrast to the warmth of the lioness's fur brushing against each other. One of them, with a notched ear, lay beside the male, her body a steady presence against his faltering strength. She licked his wounded leg gently, as if her touch could draw out the pain. The others kept watch, their ears flicking at every rustle. In the grass, alert for poachers who might slink back to claim their prize. It felt like a vow, unspoken but sacred, to protect their own. Could this unity hold against what was coming? The youngest lioness paced restlessly, her paws kicking up, tiny clouds of dust that shimmered in the moonlight. She'd never faced a threat like this, yet she didn't waver, her gaze darting between her sisters and the male. The pride's bond was their armor, forged through years of hunting and resting under the same acacia trees. Each snarl or whimper from the male seemed to tighten that bond, like a thread pulling their hearts closer. A faint breeze stirred, carrying the far-off scent of rain, as if the universe itself was rooting for them. But would their loyalty be enough to keep danger at bay? Hours passed, marked only by the slow wheel of stars overhead. The lioness's vigil never faltered, their silhouettes a fortress around the male. The older one let out a soft huff, her breath visible in the cooling air, signaling the others to stay sharp. They weren't just guarding him, they were defying the trap, the poachers. The very idea that their pride could be broken. It was a scene that could make anyone pause and think, when was the last time you stood by someone, no matter the cost? The night stretched on, tense and uncertain, but something or someone was about to change everything. The savannah was cloaked in night now, its vastness humming with the low buzz of crickets and the occasional snap of twigs under unseen hooves. Cabello, a park ranger with a weathered hat and a heart bigger than his fears, steered his old Jeep along a bumpy trail in Mariel National Park. The headlights carved golden tunnels through the dark, catching glints of eyes, maybe a bush baby or a stray antelope. His radio crackled faintly, spitting static like it was gossiping with the stars. It was just another patrol, or so he thought, until a roar, raw, pained, and unmistakable, cut through the night. Something was wrong, and Cabello's gut told him to follow that sound. He eased the Jeep to a stop, the engine's rumble fading into the wilderness's pulse. The air felt thick, charged with a tension that prickled his skin, like the moment before a storm. Grabbing his flashlight, Cabello stepped out, his boots crunching on gravel that sparkled faintly under the moon. The roar came again, weaker now, laced with desperation. It wasn't just any lion. It was the big male from the pride he'd watched for years, the one with the mane like a king's crown. Poachers, he thought, his jaw tightening. They'd been bolder lately, their traps a curse on the land. Could he really face this alone? Cabello crept forward, his flashlight beam dancing across thorny shrubs and termite mounds. The scent of dew-soaked grass clung to the air, sharp and clean, grounding him as his pulse raced. He knew the risks. Lions didn't take kindly to strangers, especially when one of their own was hurting. But something deeper, maybe a whisper from the universe, urged him on. He spotted them then, the pride, their silhouettes tense around the trapped male, whose eyes glowed like embers in the dark. The trap's steel glinted cruelly, a symbol of human greed. What kind of man would he be if he turned back now? He paused, his breath catching as one lioness, the scarred leader, locked eyes with him. Her stare wasn't hostile, but it held a weight, like she was measuring his soul. Cabello's hands shook, not just from fear, but from the enormity of what he was about to do. He had no backup, no fancy gear, just a tranquilizer dart in his pack and a stubborn streak of courage. The male lion groaned, his strength fading, and the sound hit Cabello like a plea. He'd seen animals suffer before, but this felt personal, like the pride was asking him to step up. Could he earn their trust in time? The night seemed to hold its breath as Cabello took a step closer, his flashlight steady despite his racing heart. The lionesses shifted, their tails flicking, but they didn't lunge. It was as if they sensed his intent, or maybe they were just too focused on protecting their own. He whispered a quiet prayer, the kind you say when you're not sure anyone's listening, and set his pack down. The male's pain, the pride's loyalty, the danger of poachers lurking, it all pressed down on him. But Cabello wasn't walking away. Something big was about to happen, wasn't it? The savannah's night pulsed with a restless energy, the kind that makes your skin tingle, like it's waiting for a spark. Cabello knelt a few yards from the trapped lion, his flashlight beam trembling as it lit the male's blood-streaked fur. The air carried a faint metallic whiff, sharp against the earthy dampness of the soil beneath him. The lionesses watched, their eyes like lanterns in the dark, silent but heavy with expectation. Cabello's hands, calloused from years of patrolling, hovered over his pack, just a tranquilizer dart and his own grit, hardly enough against a steel trap built to crush. But turning back wasn't an option, was it? He inched closer, his breath shallow, each step crunching faintly on brittle twigs. The male lion's groans had softened, more like sighs now, as if he was slipping away. Cabello's heart thudded, not just from fear, but from the weight of those lioness stares, trust or maybe hope shimmering in their gaze. He whispered to himself, "Just you and me, big guy," like they were old pals facing a storm together. The trap's jaws loomed, rusted and unyielding, a cruel puzzle he had to solve. Could his hands really outmatch that kind of malice? Cabello set the tranquilizer aside. No time for it, and he didn't want to risk the lion's heart stopping. His fingers grazed the trap, cold as a snake's belly, and he tugged, grunting with effort. Sweat beaded on his brow, its salt stinging his eyes blending with the night's humid cling. The lionesses shifted, one letting out a low huff like they were cheering him on in their own way. 15 minutes dragged like hours, each creak of metal a small victory, each slip a reminder of the stakes. What if the poachers came back right? Now, the stars above seemed to lean in, their light catching flecks of dust that danced around the pride. Cabello's muscles burned, his knuckles scraped raw against the trap's edges, but something stubborn in him refused to quit. The male lion stirred, his amber eyes meeting Cabello's for a fleeting second. A spark of survival, fierce and alive. With a final, desperate heave, the trap snapped open, its jaws surrendering to human will. Cabello staggered back, panting, his hands shaking but triumphant. Had he really done it? He didn't stop there. Grabbing antiseptic from his pack, he dabbed the lion's torn leg, his touch steady despite the adrenaline. The lionesses stayed close, their tails still, their silence louder than any roar. The wilderness felt different, now like it was holding its breath for what came next. Cabello tied a makeshift bandage, his fingers brushing the lion's coarse fur, a moment that felt like a promise. The male's chest rose stronger now, but the night wasn't done with them yet, was it? The savannah exhaled as the trap fell silent, its menace reduced to a heap of twisted metal. Cabello stepped back, his chest heaving, the night's coolness brushing his sweat-soaked skin like a gentle thank you. The air shimmered with the faint musk of lion fur, warm and alive, cutting through the antiseptic's sharp sting. The male lion stirred, his massive head lifting, eyes glinting with a spark that hadn't been there moments before. The lionesses, still as statues till now, let out soft chuffs, their voices weaving a quiet hymn of relief. It was the kind of moment that makes you think, isn't this what trust looks like, raw and wordless? The male struggled to his feet, his bandaged leg wobbling but holding. The youngest lioness darted forward, her nose bumping his flank, her tail curling like she was laughing through her joy. The others closed in, their bodies brushing against his, a tangle of tawny fur under the star-dusted sky. Cabello watched, his flashlight forgotten at his side, its beam pooling uselessly on the ground. Their reunion felt sacred, like stumbling on a secret the wilderness didn't share with just anyone. Could a human ever feel this close to the wild? He tucked his pack away, his movements slow, like he didn't want to break the spell. The scarred lioness, the one who'd stared him down earlier, turned her gaze on him again. This time it wasn't measuring. It was something softer, like gratitude carved in amber. The air carried a faint hum, maybe crickets or the earth itself sighing, wrapping the moment in a cocoon of peace. Cabello's throat tightened, not from fear, but from the weight of being seen, really seen, by a creature so fierce. Ever had a moment where you felt the universe was watching you back? The pride moved as one now, the male limping but steady, his mane swaying like a tattered flag of survival. The lionesses fanned out, their steps light as if the night had lifted its heaviness just for them. Cabello climbed into his jeep, his hands still tingling from the trap's cold bite. But his heart was warm, full in a way he couldn't explain. He glanced back and the male lion paused, his silhouette sharp against the horizon's faint glow. Their eyes met. One heartbeat, maybe two, and it felt like a promise neither had to speak. What do you leave behind after a moment like that? As the jeep's engine growled to life, Cabello drove off, the savannah swallowing him into its shadows. The pride melted into the grass, their forms fading but not their presence. The night felt different now, softer, like it was holding on to their story. Cabello's radio crackled, but he didn't answer. He was still lost in that gaze, that bond forged in the wild. It was over, but it wasn't, you know. Something told him this wasn't the last he'd see of those lions. The savannah woke slowly the next morning, its golden grasses swaying under a sky streaked with peach and lavender. Cabello was back on patrol, his jeep rattling along Mariel National Park's trails, the engine's hum blending with the chatter of weaver birds in nearby acacias. The air held a crisp freshness, like the earth had shaken off the night's heaviness, carrying hints of dew and wild mint. He couldn't stop replaying that moment, the lion's gaze, the pride's reunion, like it had carved itself into his bones. Ever have a memory that feels more real than the moment you're in? Something told him the wild wasn't done with him yet. A few days later, he spotted them. The pride lounged on a low hill, their tawny coats blending with the sun-warmed rocks. The male lion, his bandage gone now, lay sprawled, his mane catching the light like polished bronze. Cabello slowed the jeep, his hands tightening on the wheel, a grin tugging at his lips. The lion's limp was fainter, his strength returning, but it was the way he watched the jeep, steady, knowing, that sent a shiver down Cabello's spine. The lionesses sprawled nearby, their tails flicking lazily, yet their eyes followed him too. Was this their way of saying thanks? It became a ritual. Each evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in fiery oranges, Cabello's patrol would pass that hill. The male lion would rise, his silhouette sharp against the dusk, and stare, never aggressive, just present, like he was keeping promise. The lionesses joined in, their heads lifting one by one, their gazes soft but piercing. The air would shift, carrying the faint crackle of dry leaves under their paws, a sound that felt like a heartbeat shared across species. Cabello swore he could feel their gratitude, not in words, but in the quiet weight of being seen. Don't we all crave a connection that deep? One evening, the youngest lioness, the one with the curling tail, trotted a few steps toward the jeep, her ears perked like she was daring to bridge the gap. Cabello laughed softly, his voice barely a whisper. "Easy, little one." The others watched, their bodies relaxed but alert, as if they trusted him enough to let her play. The moment hung there, fragile and perfect, with the savannah's vastness stretching around them, zebras grazing in the distance, a hawk's cry slicing the air. It was like the wilderness itself was nodding in approval, weaving their story into its endless song. Could a bond like this really last? Weeks turned into months, and the ritual held, a silent pact between ranger and pride. The male lions. Wounds healed fully, his roars echoing again, a testament to survival and compassion. Cabello carried their story in his heart, a reminder that courage and trust could bloom even in the wild's raw edges. Each sunset as he drove past, the pride's gaze felt like a gift, a lesson in gratitude that didn't need words. The savannah kept their secret, its winds whispering of loyalty and healing. And Cabello. He knew he'd never be alone out there. Not really. What would they teach him next? The savannah stretched out like an endless canvas, its grasses whispering secrets as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a trail of molten gold. Cabello leaned against his jeep one evening, months after that fateful night, his eyes tracing the hill where the pride often rested. The air was soft now, laced with the honeyed scent of blooming aloes, a quiet gift from the wilderness that felt like it was meant just for him. He could still see it so clearly, the trap's cruel snap, the lioness's fierce loyalty, the male's soulful gaze that seemed to say more than words ever could. It wasn't just a rescue, you know. It was one of those moments that rearranges your heart like the universe slipped you a note saying, "Pay attention, this matters." Ever had a day that changed how you see the world? That night in Mariel National Park wasn't about a ranger playing hero or a lion owing anyone anything. It was about trust, messy, beautiful trust that grows when you least expect it. Cabello hadn't set out to forge a bond with a pride of lions, but there they were, teaching him something he'd carry forever. The way the lionesses stood guard, their paws rooted to the earth like they'd fight the stars themselves to protect their own. The way the male lion rose, battered but unbroken, his strength a quiet roar of survival. And that look they shared, man and beast, under a sky so big, it made everything else feel small. Doesn't it make you wonder what else we could learn if we just listened to the wild? Cabello's patrols never felt the same after that. Each creak of his jeep, each rustle of grass under a passing breeze, carried a new weight, a reminder that courage isn't always loud, and compassion doesn't always need a voice. He'd catch himself smiling at the memory of the youngest lioness, her tail curling like she was plotting some grand adventure. Or the scarred one, her steady gaze like a friend who'd seen you through your worst. The pride's ritual of watching him, evening after evening, wasn't just gratitude. It was a mirror showing him what it means to show up no matter the odds. Who hasn't felt that pull to be better, to stand taller, because of someone or something that believed in you? The savannah itself seemed to hold their story, its winds carrying echoes of that night through the acacias and over the hills. Cabello would tell you it wasn't about him, not really. It was about the pride, their loyalty, a lesson written in paw prints and roars, about how pain can forge bonds stronger than steel, and how healing starts with one brave step, whether it's prying open a trap or choosing to stay when fear screams to run. He'd say the wild has a way of teaching us if we're humble enough to learn. And maybe that's the real magic, isn't it? That sometimes the greatest teachers have four paws and speak in gazes instead of words. So here's the thing, friend. What's your story? Have you ever had an animal, wild or not, that looked at you like they saw your soul? Maybe a dog that knew you were sad before you did, or a stray cat that picked you to be its home. Drop it in the comments below, because I bet the savannah's got nothing on the stories you've got to share. Let's keep this going. Hit that like button if this tale tugged at your heart, and subscribe for more moments that remind us what it means to be alive. Cabello and that pride, they're out. They're still teaching us, still connected by a bond that says we're in this together. And honestly, isn't that what life's all about?